back for the winners finals against Zygomatic.
These two trainers are incredible, and I will say that both of them have appeared in the top 8 of the Go Battle League leaderboards, which is a global leaderboard of the top trainers in the world, Gabby. And these trainers appear there week after week. They are incredibly talented, and I'd love to see them translate and transfer these Go Battle League skills over to the Show 6 format, because in Pokemon Go, they are incredibly different. We've talked a lot about team reading this weekend, and maybe for newer trainers that are here in the arena, maybe you are only familiar with the video game series or the trading card series, it's good to kind of get some of these team building insights, because it's very, very deep and complex.
It is, and you know, talking about team building in particular, you got to talk about how they're approaching this matchup. You know, we have Zygomatic with that Talonflame Scrafty combination that we were just talking about. Axon on the other side with the Lickitung, who has really been his champion best buddy throughout the tournament. I'm wondering how these two are going to pair off against each other. I don't think you can bring Lickitung in this matchup because of how scary that Scrafty is.
Exactly right. The Scrafty is really going to give Lickitung a tough time. We've seen its Axon reach for that Lickitung in decisive moments. Let's see if he does that as well. We're queuing into game 1. Let's get excited. We have a matchup on our hands. Scrafty meets that Shadow Walrein on the field.
All right, well, I can only imagine this Walrein is not going to be sticking around long. Swampert into the Trevenant now. Trevenant going to have the type advantage with those seed bombs, but first forced to take a Hydro Cannon, which, you know, while it won't be very effective, is still going to be doing a ton of damage to that Pokemon.
And this is why Swampert was one of our Community Day Spotlight Pokemon. Its ability to get to the Hydro Cannon so quickly is just so decisive.
Oh.
But here comes the seed bomb, and this is an uphill battle for the Swampert, so its Axon is cutting his losses here, letting the Swampert go and saving that Protect Shield.
I like that play. I don't think Swampert would have been able to flip this matchup even with the use of both those Protect Shields. So saving them for later gives the Walrein and the Nidoqueen in the back of his party the best chance at success. That being said, Trevenant finding a second Seed Bomb before the Shadow Walrein can find an Icicle Sphere, but no Protect Shields yet. That does so much damage.
Yeah, that super effective damage really piles on because of that Shadow variant of the Walrein. That Best Buddy Ribbon is pretty good looking as well. We do see the Icicle Spear come through here. This is more than enough to KO the Trevenant, but the question is, can Walrein reach another attack? No, switching for the Nidoqueen, and we do see a counter swap into the Swampert. The ground types are on the field, Gabby, but Swampert has a distinct advantage here.
That happened so quickly. Nidoqueen just barely making an appearance, Scrafty barely making an appearance, and then that Swampert taking its place. It's not going to be taking a lot of damage from those Poison Fangs, but those defensive drops will start adding up. But I like how Zygomatic has the 2 Hydro Cannons already charged up on this Swampert, should be able to fire them back to back. First one gets caught by a Protect Shield, and second one possibly getting caught as well, but first another Poison Fang from Nidoqueen.
Now this is Shadow Nidoqueen in the perfect environment. It's just going to whittle away and try to drain that defense and just use these poison jabs to pile on damage onto the Swampert. The question is, I think one more Hydro Cannon is needed after this. This is a pivotal moment in the match. Will these trainers switch? Will they stay? Let's see what happens here. One more poison jab. Oh, it's a CMP.
It finds it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that was so close, but Shadow Swampert having the higher attack stack will be able to use its charged move first and get that knockout onto the Shadow Nidoqueen. Scrafty back out on the field, picking up the KO on Shadow Walrein, and game 1 of Winners Finals goes to Zygomatic.
Scrafty with a little head nod there, a little bit of respect as it counters down that Walrein. Very tough opening matchup for its Axon, swapping in there, meeting the Trevenant, very uphill throughout the entire matchup, but still incredibly close, triggering that CMP tie, that charge move priority tie, where both of those charge attacks are triggered on the same exact turn. Whichever trainer has trained their Pokemon to have the higher attack stat has the liberty of going first, and we saw the Swampert get the better of the Nidoqueen, but incredibly close.
Yeah, and it's wild to see that play out, especially knowing that both those Pokemon were the Shadow variants, which typically do have higher attack stats on top of whatever attack they do have. So important information. I wouldn't be surprised to see another charged move priority event happen between these two Pokemon, given that both that Nidoqueen and that Swampert felt pretty comfortable into a lot of the Pokemon on the opposing side of the field.
They absolutely did, and speaking in terms of team building, it's interesting that Zygomatic decided to lead that Scrafty in game 1. Now that shows a lot of bravery, a lot of commitment to that dark and fighting type Pokemon. Does that mean that its Axon is a little less likely to bring the Lickitung? Because the Lickitung had great neutral play against those back 2 Pokemon for Zygomatic, but if it can't get past the Scrafty, it's going to have a very tough matchup. So again, these trainers are not only reading the teams, but they're kind of absorbing knowledge after each and every battle.
All right, here comes game 2. It looks like these trainers are ready. One more win for Zygomatic, and he moves on to grand finals. Shadow Swampert versus Swampert leads, and already no switches. These Swampert happy to bank some energy for later on in this match.
Now you're going to see these Hydro Cannons really just pack a punch as these 2 Swamperts gather some energy, going to go ahead and fire first. It's Axon wanting to strike here against the Shadow Swampert. It will deal a lot of damage because the Shadow difference is 20%, which can be significant, especially in mirror matchups like this one.
Yeah, and it's such a tough call here because they've already taken a little bit of chip damage, and Hydro Cannon is almost a KO as it is onto Swampert. So these shields almost forced, and I think the biggest question is whether or not they're going to use both at the lead, but it's Axon not opting to use the second shield here. This Hydro Cannon connects and just barely misses that KO.
Oh my goodness, that Hydro Cannon is so impactful, but here comes another one from It's Axon. Does Zygomatic follow suit? No, he's going to 2 shield. I think that we're going to see a mud shot through the rest of the Swampert's HP, and he gets there with just 3.
So one trainer lost all their shields, the other trainer lost their first Pokemon. It does make you wonder who has the advantage right now, as Walrein will be facing off against Talonflame.
Now this is interesting, right? Switching to the Talonflame, trying to pull out that 3rd Pokemon, but It's Axon not willing to take the bait. Going to go ahead and throw an Icicle Spear here. We know Talonflame has no Protect Shields. It's not known as being one of the bulkier Pokemon in the Open Great League, so it does take a lot of damage there. Here comes the first attack. This could be a Brave Bird or Flame Charge. What does It's Axon decide to do? No shielding. Great call there on that Flame Charge.
Yeah, that attack boost, though, will help this Talonflame pick up the knockout on this Shadow Walrein in just a couple more fast moves, but unable to find those prior to the Icicle Sphere on the Walrein. Will be picking up that knockout, but seems like a great opportunity for this Registeel to come in and maybe get some energy and start charging up those Zap Cannons.
The problem here, Gabby, is that both of these Pokemon are charge move oriented. Those fast attacks don't do any damage, so he's forced to send in the Swampert here and roll the dice on what It's Axon's 3rd Pokemon might be. We see the Icicle Spear come through here, and look at that damage!
Oh,
the Swampert is off the field, reaching for the swap. Here comes the Registeel versus the Nidoqueen. This is not unwinnable, but it's going to be a bit tough here.
So the Nidoqueen still has 1 shield available to it. That Registeel unable to have those shields. Going for the Focus Blast as that first charged move. Not trying to debuff the Nidoqueen's attack at all, but I would imagine you can take 1 Earth Power, but definitely not 2.
This is super effective ground type damage from a Nidoqueen that has the Shadow bonus as well. And boom, that crater opens up. The Registeel withstands it, but I don't think it can absorb another, like you said.
No, so much damage from these charged moves, especially when they are super effective in their typing. Registeel will find a Focus Blast here, and this is great information for Zygomatic as we move throughout this winner's finals, knowing how much this will do to that Nidoqueen, as it is a resisted attack, but Earth Power is all that's needed to clean up and tie the score 1-1 in this best of 5 winners finals.
And as we look more closely, that Earth Power does secure the knockout. Looking at the teams again though, Shadow Nidoqueen, we didn't call it out at the beginning of this series, but I think it's a pivotal Pokemon, especially when you consider that the Swampert is the best answer for it. If Shadow Nidoqueen can avoid getting aligned against that Shadow Swampert, I think it has neutral to winning matchups almost across the board here.
Yeah, and it goes to show just how important alignment is overall in these matchups. You know, we saw, I think, Zygomatic have great alignment in that game 1 with the Shadow Swampert in particular, and now in game 2, it's Axon. Again, gets that alignment. The Shadow Nidoqueen is just able to clean up versus that Registeel. And going into game 3, you have to wonder, like, how do I sort of force my opponent to get the alignment that's more favorable to me? We saw Zygomatic, I think, make some switches very early on, maybe drawing out the Pokemon that he wanted in order to find that alignment. So if you're both playing that same mind game at this point, how does that play out? Like, are you just guessing what your opponent is thinking and trying to be 2 or 3 steps ahead, or is it more complicated than that?
Well, you know, we try to avoid hypotheticals from time to time, but I do want to mention again that game 2, making that switch out into the Talonflame. Zygo was trying really hard to pull out the Nidoqueen.
Yeah.
And what eventually happens there is that the Nidoqueen would probably defeat the Talonflame, especially if a Protect Shield was invested. Then that Shadow Swampert would gain alignment against the Nidoqueen and make things really tough for its accent. But team reading is not only looking at the team of 6, but also you can only see one Pokemon on the field at a time. So you have to predict what your opponent is going to bring in their team of 3, and its accent just really, really dialed in here, predicting that swap was an attempt to lure him out and not falling into that trap.
Yeah, going into game 3, I mean, you have to consider, do I just try and play that same lead again, play that same trap again, and hope my opponent plays through it differently? I know a lot of times in the video game, you know, players will follow similar strategies to try and fake their opponent out, you know, think, oh, well, maybe if I bluff this, or maybe if I do this again, they'll think I'll do the same thing again, but this time I'll play it differently. But, you know, going into this game 3, I don't think you can necessarily take that risk at this point. I think there's enough cushion for both these trainers that they could just try something completely different and see how it works out. You know, we still got a couple of games before this set wraps up, and there's the Lickitung versus the Shadow Swampert, so already a mix-up from its Axon, bringing that best buddy into battle.
I really, really like this call by its Axon. We talked about that Scrafty and the Registeel combination being very tough for the Lickitung, but he still brings it against all the odds, and it finds the Shadow Swampert. Now, surprisingly, unless this Lickitung can find a way to land 2 body slams or a power whip, the Shadow Swampert can't get the better of it. So we do see it build a lot of energy, and it's going to start to deploy these Hydro Cannons, Gabby. Yeah,
it's already at 2 Hydro Cannons, and it looks like, honestly, this Shadow Swampert would be able to find a third. It's insane at how quickly it's able to get energy thanks to Mudshot. And even though Lick, which is also one of the fast moves in the game, just can't even match it.
Lick is great in terms of turn speed, but it does not gather quite as much energy as the Mudshot. We are going to see a switch out as well, maybe attempting to catch a move. Here comes the Swampert into the Registeel. This is the key alignment for its Accent.
And that's the kind of alignment you want when you're in this winner's finals and you want to be able to find these type advantages. We're seeing the Registeel go for a Focus Blast. That's going to do some nice damage for the Swampert, but it is going to be able to find that Earthquake and does have a bit of a choice here. You know, do I go for the Hydro Cannon and try and bait out one of those shields, or do I go for the Earthquake? That's the move of choice. Zygomatic forgoes the shield, and that's a knockout.
Wow, huge Earthquake coming through there from the Swampert. It kind of roars a little bit there on the opposing side of the field. It's very, very satisfied with that attack there. Yeah, very interesting, right? Because now you're loaded up with energy, and as we see the Hydro Cannon get triggered here as well, Axon is really starting to apply pressure.
Yeah, that Hydro Cannon will be a knockout if it's allowed to connect, but Zygomatic, using that last shield, will find a second Hydro Cannon, I think taking the opportunity to get a couple more turns of energy in, knowing that after you use a Hydro Cannon, it's usually 4 or 5 turns until your opponent finds a second one. So there's the knockout there, and it looks like we're seeing Zygomatic reveal his final Pokemon. It's that Alolan Ninetales against the Shadow Nidoqueen.
Not all hope is lost. We are going to see a Poison Fang come through here, and this Fairy-type Alolan Ninetales is going to take a lot of damage from this attack here, but it might be able to reach a Weather Ball. Let's see. It needs maybe one more charm. Can it get there? No! Oh my goodness. The 2 Poison Jabs connect, and that's more than enough. My goodness, here comes the Shadow Nidoqueen again, just rolling through this matchup in the late game.
And that's the alignment that Axon found in Game 2, finding it again in Game 3. And without a Talonflame to really draw out that Nidoqueen earlier, Zygomatic really struggled. You know, this is could be the final game of this winner's finals, assuming Axon is able to use that Shadow Queen as effectively again. I think if you're Zygomatic, you can't take any risks. The Alolan Ninetales was a cool idea. You know, maybe if you had that Weather Ball already there when the Shadow Nidoqueen showed up, you can deal that damage and pick up that KO, but not when you're forced to wait for that charm to allow you to charge up.
So before this battle started, you made a really good point. You could talk about bringing neutral Pokemon and trying to outplay your opponent. Both of these trainers have incredibly high skill ceilings, and we might see that from time to time, but other times you want to switch up your strategy. Maybe you make a call. You've seen a Pokemon 2 or 3 times. You can anticipate it appearing in the next battle. So choosing a Pokemon like Alolan Ninetales, because Charm is such a long duration fast attack, it does a lot of damage but does not gather much energy. That Pokemon is a bit one-dimensional. It really dominates hates key matchups, but it can be really, really tough to come out of negative ones. So that was more of a hard call. And as these trainers switch up their styles here, we might see a return to more neutral play. Would you agree?
I think so. If you know that if your opponent gets one more win, they are moving on and you are knocked down to the loser's bracket, I think neutral play is the way to go. You want consistency, you want to have that confidence, and you know, tried and true is tried and true for a reason. Meta is meta for a reason. And I think that while we've seen, you know, a lot of interesting Pokemon bubble up, you know, sometimes you got to go back to the classics, like those fighting type Pokemon, Medicham and Scrafty out on the field of Game 4 winners finals. Now it's Swampert and Walrein.
Yeah, that was an instant swap there because you can see Medicham asserting its dominance as one of the best fighting type Pokemon in the Open Great League. You see the Walrein striking first here. Now the tough aspect of this matchup here is that the Shadow Walrein can just go for straight Icicle Spears, but the Swampert needs to land an Earthquake to deal meaningful damage. So we do see it build up that much energy and then throw the Hydro Cannon. Great bait by Zygomatic. He's got to do more special things like that if he wants to get back into this matchup.
And you can see that he's going for the Earthquake, it looks like, waiting for that to charge. Will have an Icicle Sphere here first. I don't think it's going to get the knockout. No shield, so Zygomatic clearly agrees, and Swampert just has a sliver of health left, not getting that extra energy for the Earthquake. Instead, forced to go for that Hydro Cannon. Axen recognizing that, no shield.
We both had to lean in there, maybe put on our reading glasses to see the HP remaining there. What a critical calculation by Zygomatic, knowing he could reach that final Hydro Cannon. But this is tough because he was unable to defeat the Walrein. 60-second switch timers means that the Medicham is likely going to find the Scrafty again. So how can Zygomatic manipulate his energy to try to find a way out of this negative matchup?
I like how Axen did not go for the immediate switch here and instead just letting that Walrein get knocked out while getting a little bit of chip down thanks to that Icicle Sphere on Scrafty. Now, yes, you will see the Medicham come in, you will see the Trevenant come in, and now you'll see that Nidoqueen, but you know that the Scrafty has already taken enough damage that Medicham, provided it's able to get to an Ice Punch, should be able to pick up that KO.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we see these trainers make a lot of deductive reasoning as they go through that 10-second countdown when selecting new Pokemon. A lot of it feels like muscle memory. It happens so quickly. You look at the opponent's team, you say, if it's anything but this Pokemon, I'm going to switch. That's why these swaps seem instantaneous.
Seed Bomb will be blocked by the Protect Shield, and it looks like Axen is out. Zygomatic still has one shield remaining. The Seed Bomb is going to be resisted by the Shadow Nidoqueen, but because its defenses are lower thanks to that Shadow ability, it still brings it down into the red, which means Scrafty could farm down here if given the opportunity, but this Poison Fang is going to deal a little bit of damage, not use the last shield, but get that defense drop, which is going to be so important for Medicham.
Scrafty working uphill and is able to counter down the Nidoqueen, but the problem here is that these counters deal super effective damage, and Scrafty is going to do its best to deploy two foul plays, deal some resisted damage, or excuse me, neutral damage to this Medicham here. Let's see what comes through. Here's the first one, and you can kind of calculate there, Gabby, by the amount of HP that took away. The second might not be enough. Scrafty, one more parting blow here with the foul play.
If Axen is able to find this knockout, he will be moving on into the grand finals, and there it is, just a counter away. Congratulations to Axen, your first grand finalist here at the North American International Championship.
What an exciting time for competitive Pokemon Go. Its Axen has shown an ability, and I've noticed this throughout the series, an ability to bounce back from a Game 1 loss. He is not flustered. A lot of trainers use that Game 1 as kind of information gathering. They get notes about their opponent's play style, what Pokemon they like to bring. Maybe sometimes you almost intentionally lose that one, right? Because you want to get a good feel for your opponent, and once you kind of unlock those secrets, you can deploy your own strategies and find success.